effect from Thursday, January 1st, 2026. The road toll fee rates will be adjusted upwards. The new tariff, which will be applicable for both Chinganito Plaza and Kalinyike Tollgate, is as follows. Class 1A light vehicle 2 axles at 2,000 kwacha. Class 1B pickup 2 axles at 2,000 kwacha. Class 1C minibus 2 axles at 3,000 kwacha. Class 2A 17 to 31 passengers with rear double tire 2 axles at 8,000 kwacha. Class 2B 2 to 5 tons with rear double tire 2 axles at 8,000 kwacha. Class 3 above 31 passengers 3 axles at 8,000 kwacha. Class 3 above 5 to 10 tons 3 axles at 8,000 kwacha. Class 4 above 10 tons 4 or more axles at 10,000 kwacha. And Class 5 abnormal load at 40,000 kwacha. Local user discount rates. Class
Welcome, and it's time for our news bulletin right here on Luntha television, and you're with me, Patrick Popper. But first, the headlines.
Pope Leo XIV urges Venezuela to overcome violence and safeguard sovereignty amid United States actions. Irovo sugar operations disrupted by severe flooding in Nkota. The Civil Society Education Coalition CSEC calls for clear funding plan as free primary and secondary education begins. And finally, in international news, the Economic Community of West African States urges respect for Venezuela's independence after United States operation.
Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Pope Leo XIV on Sunday voiced deep concern about the situation unfolding in Venezuela following the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro by United States forces. Maduro was detained in Caracas on Saturday and later transferred to New York to face trial. We have a Vatican News report read by Chadida Chiranga.
During his Angelus address at midday, the Pope stressed that the warfare of the Venezuelan people must come before all other interests. He called for an end to violence and urged efforts toward justice and peace, emphasizing the need to protect Venezuela's sovereignty, uphold constitutional law, respect human and civil rights, and work collectively toward a peaceful, stable, and cooperative future. He highlighted the suffering of the poorest citizens who continue to bear the brunt of the country's economic hardships. Addressing the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square, Pope Leo encouraged prayers for Venezuela and assured the people of his own spiritual support. He also placed the nation under the protection of Our Lady of Coromoto, Venezuela's patron saint, along with St. Jose Gregorio Hernandez and St. Carmen Rendaus. The Pope concluded by urging trust in God, whom he described as the source of peace. He called on believers to remain faithful, to pray, and to show solidarity with nations affected by war and conflict. Meanwhile, in the early hours of January 3rd, U.S. Special Forces carried out operations in Caracas, targeting key military sites and arresting Nicolas Maduro and his wife Cecilia Flores at their home. The couple was taken to New York, where they were placed in detention and charged with multiple criminal offenses. In response, the Venezuelan Bishops' Conference released a statement on Sunday expressing the church's closeness to the people during this difficult time. The bishops called on God to grant Venezuelans calmness, wisdom and resilience, while expressing solidarity with those injured and with families who lost loved ones. They also urged continued prayer for national unity. The bishops appealed for all actions and decisions to be guided by what is best for the country. They encouraged the faithful to embrace hope and intensify prayers for peace both personally and socially, while firmly rejecting violence. They called for openness to dialogue, mutual support and decisions rooted in the common good of the Venezuelan people.
Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Lilongwe, George Desmond Tambala, has urged parents, priests, and religious sisters to be like the star that guided the wise men from the east, so that children may grow up with the strong moral and Christian values. Archbishop Tambala made the remark during the Epiphany celebration of Our Lady of the Whole Rosary Kun Parish in the Archdiocese of Lilongwe. He stressed that children are the leaders of today and tomorrow, and that is the responsibility of parents and guardians to ensure that children are properly guided both spiritually and morally, for them to grow into responsible citizens and faithful Christians. Emmanuel Chocha with the details.
In his homily, Archbishop Tambala quoted Matthew 2, verse 1 to 12, reminding parents, priests, and sisters that just like the wise men and the star, they are called to lead children to Christ by instilling good behavior, discipline, and love for God. He further emphasized that parents should nurture children in all aspects of life, including spiritual, moral, and physical, noting that balanced support will help children grow into faithful and responsible members of the church and society.
It's a message of hope to the world, but also to our country, Malawi. The hope is actually in the form of our children. As we are today celebrating the day for the children, the mission and life of the children, my message is to call for the respect, for the love of all children, wherever they may be, and in terms of protecting them, to safeguard them and to see that they are growing well, and also they're having all the needs that they have.
Pontifical Mission Society PMS National Director Father Peter Madea said the event was well organized, described the active participation of children as a sign that the future of the church is bright.
With the way things have gone here at Likuni, it shows that the parish priest and the parish council, they were helping the children to have a good organization of the event. As you can see, in terms of singing, it was good. In terms of leading the liturgy, the word of God, it was good. And also the liturgical part of it, as the assembly guides, the children were prepared, and I'm happy with the way this parish has prepared the national event.
Meanwhile, Lilongwe Archdiocese Laity Chairperson Patrick Ripava commended the children for their active participation, saying church is alive and hopeful.
You have seen the children leading in the liturgy, from singing in the choir, reading the readings, and even doing announcements, and actually the entire liturgy has been led by children. So it means that even if we leave these children to pray on their own, they can pray and conclude on. So the church is living, and we hope there's a better church for tomorrow.
One of the children from Ligoni Parish, Brandina Pili, thanked the church for setting aside Epiphany Day and urged parents to allow them to actively participate in church liturgy.
They should be introducing us to come here at church, to participate what our friends are doing, and to help us to indeed participate, to even go to other parishes, to participate what their friends, to see what our other friends are doing.
Dressed in their yellow and green uniform, children from different parishes sang joyfully and actively participate in the liturgy, creating an atmosphere of happiness that reflected the importance of the day set aside especially for them. This year's Epiphany celebration was held under the theme, Children are called to stay united with Jesus Christ and work together in carrying out God's mission. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, this is Emmanuel Chiwocha.
Ilovo Sugar Managing Director Ronald Ngwira has described the recent flooding at the company's Luanga factory as the worst in recent years, warning that heavy rains have severely disrupted sugar transportation. Speaking in an interview with the Luntha television, Ngwira said approximately 720 milliliters of rain fell on the estate, causing internal flooding and overflow from nearby river. Charity Chiranga reports.
Ngwira revealed that sugar production stopped about 3 weeks ago, but added that the company still has 73,000 metric tons of sugar in stock, enough to supply the country until April. However, he said the damaged sections of the M5 road are hampering the transportation of sugar to markets, while a prolonged rainfall could further affect production. Ngwira said approximately 3,000 hectares of sugarcane fields have been affected by the floods, posing a significant threat to sugar production. He warned that if the rainfall pattern does not improve by April, the country could face additional challenges in sugar supply.
So we stopped producing sugar about 3 weeks ago, but we do have a lot of sugar on site, which is supposed to be moved to the markets, which is sitting in the warehouse, but we can't move currently until the N5 opens up. So it is a big impact, but unfortunately, because of the early onset of the rains, we've had about 1,500 hectares of Nzimbe that we could not harvest because the rain came too much too early. So that's a problem. As I mentioned to the media 2 weeks ago, we were sitting with 73,000 tons, which was enough for January, February, March, April. If the rain stops early, we'll start processing. But if the rains continue into May will be a problem.
Meanwhile, Minister of Transport and Public Works Feston Kauba has reassured the public that the government is taking steps to minimize the disruptions to sugar supplies. He said the repairs on the M5 road are progressing well and heavy vehicles are expected to resume movement by the end of the week.
As we think of the way forward, as you notice just in the background that we have equipment that is repairing Luangwa Bridge, we're expecting that they should be finishing these repair works on this bridge today and allow traffic to start flowing.
Ilovo Sugar Malawi says it is continuing to assess the full impact of the floods on the company's operations.
In a related development, the Minister of Transport and Public Works, Honorable Feston Kaupa MP, has attributed the extensive damage to Malawi's major road infrastructure to the effects of climate change, following persistent heavy rains that have washed away sections of key national roads. In an interview, Kaupa said the M1, M5 and M18 roads have been severely affected, disrupting transport and trade across the country. Bridget Manoka reports.
The minister said M1, M5 and M18 are of critical economic and social importance, noting that the M1 and M5 corridors are key trade and transport routes connecting Malawi to the United Republic of Tanzania, while also facilitating domestic movement of goods, services and people. He said in response to the damage, the Ministry of Transport and Public Works, working with the Roads Authority, contractors, the Malawi Defence Force and other stakeholders, moved swiftly to mitigate the situation. Kaupa added that although rising water levels briefly overtopped a temporary diversion at one point, repair works were immediately carried out and traffic has since resumed.
Alternative routes are being improved through the deployment of graders and drainage units to reduce pressure on the temporary bridge and to provide relief during the maintenance periods that I've just mentioned. In parallel, the ministry, through the Roads Authority, has commenced the process of mobilizing Bele Bridge components and related material for the construction of a semi-permanent access structure.
The Roads Authority is conducting routine daily maintenance between 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to sustain the temporary access, during which motorists will experience brief closures. Alternative routes are also being improved to ease pressure on the temporary structures. Bridget Mwanoka, for Luntha News.
In case you are just making a big switch, welcome, and remember that you are watching News Bulletin coming to you from Luntha Television, and you are with me, Patrick Pooper. But before we proceed, top stories once again.
Pope Leo XIV urges Venezuela to overcome violence and safeguard sovereignty amid United States actions. Irovo sugar operations disrupted by severe flooding in Nkota. The Civil Society Education Coalition (CSEC) calls for a clear funding plan as free primary and secondary education begins. And finally, in international news, the Economic Community of West African States urges respect for Venezuela's independence after United States operation.
The Civil Society Education Coalition (CSEC) has urged the government to put in place a clear and sustainable financial plan to ensure the success of free primary and secondary education, which has commenced with the opening of second term on Monday. CSEC Executive Director Benedict Kondowe told Luntha Television that the removal of school fees alone does not guarantee quality education, stressing that adequate resources must be provided for the policy to succeed. He noted that government must invest in qualified teachers, sufficient teaching and learning materials, and adequate classroom infrastructure to avoid overcrowding and decline in education standards. Emmanuel Chocha with the details.
In an interview, Kondowe said the introduction of the free secondary education is expected to increase access, promote equity, and encourage learners who had dropped out of school due to financial challenges to return, thereby narrowing the gap between the rich and the poor. However, Kondowe emphasized that while free education is a positive step, quality must remain a priority, urging the government to ensure conducive learning environment, adequate number of qualified teachers, and a transparent financial implementation plan that will clearly outline the resource required and how they will be utilized.
Our view is that free secondary education will increase access and promote equity, especially if you consider those that eventually dropped out because they were incapable of paying requisite fees, will now be able to learn without impediment. So that will translate into completion, high completion rate, as it were. It will also bridge the gap because the most affected are poor students from poor backgrounds who will then be guaranteed of the right to education. So I think it has a positive impact. However, removal of fees in themselves do not guarantee quality because quality is a byproduct of many other factors. One including availability of qualified teachers, availability of adequate teaching learning materials, and availability of quality infrastructure.
CSEC has reaffirmed its commitment to continue working hand in hand with the government to ensure that education standards in the country improve. President Professor Peter Mutharika announced during the opening of the parliamentary session that from January 2026, parents would no longer be required to pay school fees, a move widely welcomed by education stakeholders. For Luntha News, in Lilongwe, this is Emmanuel Chuocha.
Presidential candidate in the September 16, 2025 elections, Adil James Chirungo, has called on the government to embrace inclusive governance by utilizing the ideas, innovation, and expertise of all Malawians, including those in the opposition, saying national recovery requires a collective effort beyond political lines. In an interview with the Luntha television, Chilungo said Malawi's challenges are shared by all citizens and can only be resolved if the government opens up to broader consultations and contribution. Charlie Chiranga with the details.
In his remarks, Chilungo said although some improvements have been noted in fuel and foreign exchange availability since the elections, he remains concerned that the underlying economic fundamentals have not significantly changed to guarantee long-term recovery. He said issues of foreign exchange, employment and productivity remain unresolved, adding that the current fiscal crisis facing Malawi, as documented by the World Bank, demands openness to ideas and pressure on government to do things differently. Chilungo said the agricultural sector presents an opportunity for recovery if government listens to diverse views and acts decisively, particularly on fertilizer access. He noted that despite the farm input subsidy program reaching villages, persistent complaints suggest more innovation and efficiency is needed to maximize production.
Looking at the fundamentals, because 3 months is so short, there's nothing that the government could have done, or they could have indicated, or they have shown to say that maybe investment is going to go up, right? With the current economic, financial crisis, fiscal crisis that has been documented for Malawi, right, by the World Bank, it means the government is really in big pressure to really sort out things. So I don't see, that rating, I don't see serious investors coming to Malawi, right, with that rating. And secondly, I do not see, I don't see much improvement in the agricultural sector, right? Because the agricultural sector is about fertilizer. So you can see that even until now, we have not actually moved so good in terms of showing the country that, the government showing the country that the fertilizer issue is going to be solved. Because already now people are complaining, yes, there's some fertilizers, FISIP, whatever, this subsidy is going to the villages, but not, without complaints. People are complaining, right? Meaning we have not, done so much to take advantage of the moment, right? We got good rains now, we got good soil, where we actually help our farmers to produce as much, our subsistence farmers or our small-scale farmers, to produce so much more that they can eat, and then the rest we can actually export. Well, that's when I start talking about forex. If you can produce enough for your food, and then you're left with the surplus to sell, like outside, then you can get forex. That's one level of looking at things.
Asked about the possibility of contesting again in the 2030 elections, Chilungo said his decision would depend on whether systemic challenges in the electoral process are addressed. He cited the high cost of campaigning and what he described as widespread voter inducement as major obstacles that discourage capable candidates from participating. Chilungo said beyond elections, he is focused on encouraging Malawians to change their mindset, recognize the country's vast potential, and believe that poverty is not inevitable but can be overcome through unity, innovation, and effective use of available resources.
And finally, in international news, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has expressed concern over the situation in Venezuela after the United States captured its president Nicolas Maduro and carried out military strikes on its capital, Caracas. ECOWAS urged the international community to respect the independence and territorial integrity of Venezuela. The bloc expressed support for the country's population as they shape the future of their country through an inclusive process in a statement on Sunday night. Emmanuel Chocha is reading an African News report.
Over the weekend, the U.S. captured President Maduro and his wife Cecilia Flores in a military operation Minerego expert described as illegal. The pair were transferred to New York City, where they've been detained in a Brooklyn jail, and they face charges tied to drugs, trafficking, and terrorism. U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to assert control over Venezuela's oil reserves and said the U.S. would run the country for the time being. ECOWAS acknowledged the right of states to fight international crimes, but called on all countries to respect international law, especially Article 2, subsection 4 of the United Nations Charter, which demands that states refrain from the threats or use of force against other nations. The bloc has aligned itself with the African Union, which has called for restraints and dialogue, including among Venezuela themselves.
With that international report read by Emmanuel Chocha, we have come to the end of our news bulletin right here on Luntha Television. But before I go, top stories once again.
Pope Leo XIV urges Venezuela to overcome violence and safeguard sovereignty amid United States actions. Irovo sugar operations disrupted by severe flooding in Nkota. The Civil Society Education Coalition CSEC calls for clear funding plan as free primary and secondary education begins. And finally, in international news, the Economic Community of West African States urges respect for Venezuela's independence after United States operation.
Thanks for watching our news bulletin. My name is Patrick Popper, and I wish you a lovely time and keep watching Luntha Television, and bye for now.
Luntha Television stands as an autonomous faith-based broadcaster with a national and international reach. Experience the difference with Luntha Television, where innovation meets experience. Our dedicated team, backed by cutting-edge technology, ensures seamless execution and unparalleled results. Luntha guarantees credibility and professionalism in all its endeavors and services. We offer, among this, production and broadcasting of jingles, music